How Maidan affected you personally and your family?
Well, Maidan, it completely changed my life in every possible aspect. When I came there, I was working on music for a film, and sort of, I didn't come with any sort of under any political pretenses. I just came to work, and then I decided to go and see what it was all about. And of course, all the musicians that I had come to record, they were all on Maidan. So I had to go down just to meet with them, to be able to get them to come to my hotel room to record. And when I came down, I was so completely overwhelmed and inspired by the scale of everything, and by the sheer strength of this humanity and emotion that was felt, that I decided to keep coming back and going back and going back and going back, and that all of that just amplified even more, and ultimately it led to a shift in, for me, if we're talking about me personally, it led to a shift in my mentality and the way that I wanted to interact with people, the way that I wanted to be a part of something larger than myself, and also the way that I wanted to be a champion for a part of the world that doesn't, to my mind, get enough attention or enough love.
In what way did it push your creativity forward? Did it inspire you to write new songs or something else?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how creativity works. It doesn't always just come from a singular source. Like, you think, okay, I heard this music and now I'm inspired to create music like that. Or I saw film and now I want to make a film that's similar to that. Or I read a book and it makes me want to write. Here there was a situation of, there was so much visual, oral, like a variety of different sensory stimuli that just completely made you want to create, made you want to be a part of it. And so in our case, it was, we didn't even think, we weren't theater people, we hadn't spent our lives preparing and making and studying theater. We just experienced this, communal both celebration and tragedy. And when we thought about, well, what's the way that we can share this experience with people, the natural thing that came out was theater. It was immersive theater where we could involve the audience. And we really truly felt that was the only form that we can share our experiences with. And then as we started exploring that, then we started to think about, well, how do we express this through music? And that started to, breeds other types of inspiration.
What problems, what topics or ideas you are aiming to focus on because of Maidan?
Well, the biggest thing that, we're focusing on right now is giving life to Ukrainian culture and tradition in sort of the context of current conflict. We really want to be a part of that conversation of, well, what does our Ukrainianness mean right now? What does it mean to be Ukrainian? Why is it that we are different than the people on the other side of the conflict? And what is it that makes us the same? What is it that makes us the same as everybody in Europe? Why we're fighting to be a part of sort of a global European system of values? And what is it that differentiates us that we can add to that tapestry? And of course, we're trying to figure, well, you know, how do we fit into the sort of global scheme of things? That's what's really interesting to us as artists, because we found ourselves really, really pulled towards that identity and understanding what it is more so than ever before.
Mark, what do you think about the outcomes of Maidan? Are you personally satisfied with the results of this revolution, or something that wasn't achieved?
Well, I think that you know, there's one thing that is incredibly positive that came out of it, that in spite of where it's gone, in spite of the continued corruption within the government and the ongoing war with the Russian Federation, and the sense of division in the East, the thing that Maidan did was that it inspired everybody, it opened everyone's eyes to the fact that we're not alone, that there is something larger at play than a sort of this kind of propaganda of who we are or who we should be and how we should act. What Maidan did was it made everybody open their doors and open their hearts and speak to one another, one person to one person. And the types of people that ended up communicating with one another and standing arm in arm, fighting against corruption for equality, were people that might not have ever met before because society told them they shouldn't be standing together. So all of that coming together, understanding that Ukraine is actually not weak, it's not a sort of separate baby, you know, our little brother of Russia. There's this whole wide, diverse group of people that are interested in global issues and local issues, and have their own culture and their own dialects and their own food and all of that stuff. This is all a group of people that came together, and no matter what happened after that, that's something that will never ever be lost. And so, you know, to me, without Maidan having happened, that might have never been gained.
What demands of the protesters during Maidan have been accomplished?
Well, I guess the most major one from a technical standpoint was the current president was dethroned, so to speak. That was one of the biggest demands, was for President Viktor Yanukovych to step down as president, and that happened. So that was something that was accomplished. Another one that was accomplished was that all of the people who were detained, the protesters who were detained, would be let go. They were all let go. Of course, you know, it's hard to say, you know, is there now a sort of non-corrupt, unified state that has started to move closer to Europe? I don't know. I don't know if I think steps have been made, but there's also, I think, corruption still exists, and people are very disenchanted by that. Of course, Crimea was annexed, and there's a war in the east, and the territories of Luhansk and Donetsk have been separated and not only invaded, but taken over. So I know that was definitely not a part of the demands of the protesters, or something that they ever imagined in their wildest dreams would happen.
What is your opinion on internally displaced people, those who lived in Donbass, and now they even cannot get citizenship for their newborn children? So they're kind of refugees in their own country. So what do you think on this matter?
It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, within any war, and this is the case on either side of a conflict, there are civilians who are, not only civilians, but also, I mean, war is so ugly, it sort of takes over your psychology, your physical space, you physically, and it just creates problems. It's like a disease. So unfortunately, what it means is that there's a lot of people that either can't move and see their families, or don't have access to things like fresh, clean water and constant food supply, or warm clothes and heating in the winter, things like that. It's a very, very big problem. I know that there's, I'm not sure what's happening on the Russian side of the conflict, but I know that in Ukraine, there have been a lot of organizations and volunteers who have attempted to take in people and sort of help to stabilize the situation as much as is possible. I know that, you know, there's an organization that we work with called Help Us Help the Children, who they've already for 20 years been doing these kind of like summer and winter camps for orphans. And since the war started, they started to do psychological rehabilitation programs in addition to focusing their energy on kids displaced by war. So, you know, there are things that are happening. There are organizations that are dealing with it, but unfortunately, it's an uphill battle.
There was information that some Berkut soldiers, with this guilt, what they done, they went to Donbass to fight against Russia. What do you think about that, and can they be forgiven?
I don't know about whether it's guilt or not. I do know that that's absolutely true, because, you know, as with any sort of, within any nation, you know, there's the police force or the military, they have to follow orders from above. So the second that Yanukovych left the country, there were no orders from above. That it sort of falls apart, which was one of the reasons why it was so easy to annex Crimea for Russia without a fight. In any event, those people, when a new president was instated and there was a war declared against Russia, those people had an option. The same way that they had an option to either go and attack protesters, they now have an option to fight or not fight the war. And I think that the reality is, or I know that the reality is from first-hand stories, you know, from soldiers on the front, that that some of the same people that were beating students are ones that are shooting at separatists and Russian forces from our side now. It's actually a pretty, it's a very complicated situation when you have those two people side by side sleeping in the same barracks, and they, you know, they know of their backgrounds, and it's you know, I think one day that information, more of it will come out about those kind of relationships and how it's affected the work. I can't speak personally, you know, as an artist on the outside as to sort of what those specific effects have been, but I'm sure that it's really interesting.
What have you personally discovered about the human nature during Maidan? Has it made you change your mind about some aspects of human personality?
Yeah, I mean, what Maidan really brought out was just the extremes of emotion. So for me, the boundaries of human experience just widened out. You know, when you live in Canada and you grew up in a suburb in a very comfortable neighborhood, the bounds of your experience are a certain way. Whether that's large or small, it's all relative, right? You know, the second you, as a kid, like the first time you get beat up, that experience widens. You know, you start to feel pain, you feel anger, you feel, you know, pity or whatever it is. First time you kiss a girl or a boy, you have emotions inside and it expands even more. What happened on Maidan is that all of our physical and our emotional boundaries expanded by miles in a matter of minutes. So when that happens, it's just the emotion, both good and bad and everything, just starts pouring out, and there's no defense against your own thoughts and feelings. So what it basically leads to is honesty and truth. You know, if you're a person who feels like they should be running, you're gonna run. If you're a person who feels like they should be attacking, you're going to attack. If you're a person who feels like they should be hugging or loving, you're gonna hug and love. That's just what happens in those situations. Sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 things at a time. So it was, I mean, the amazing thing is that, you know, once coming out of that and having gone through that experience, is that you understand that, you know, those boundaries are now wider for you. You know, all of your psychology, your feeling, it's all changed in a way that you can now access all of those places, all of those emotions, but this time with a little bit of foresight.